Hi, this is your Sapil Bharti and welcome to your Fearless Talk. And today we have with us Jon Taylor, Director and Principal of Security at Versa Networks. John, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And this is the first time I'm talking to you and to someone from Versa Networks. So I would love to know a bit about the company itself. What do you folks do and what are the areas that you operate or industry that you operate and focus on?
So from a high level, Versa founded its roots in networking, right? We are the number one SD-WAN provider, on the planet today. Versa roughly about 3 years ago took a shift. We wanted to focus more on our security platform. We've always had a robust security platform built within our SD-WAN environment, next gen firewall, IDS, IPS, full UTM or unified threat management features and so forth. So because of the way Versa actually goes to market, because we are a software company, we started asking ourselves, why can't we start putting a lot of our stuff in the cloud? Why can't we start doing a lot more security in an elastic way? So we built out this full SSE or Security Service Edge platform, partnered with Equinix to be able to do that globally with over 90 POPs worldwide. Short story is that now we can offer things like, our full UTM services in the cloud from an SSE perspective, be able to have full remote capabilities for customers, right? Being able to utilize those 90 POPs, having each one of those 90 POPs as well being a compute location going forward, utilizing things like our advanced threat protection suites, right? I.e. our sandboxing solution, multi-AV, things like that, URL filtering, you name it, and also being able to couple that with what we're doing from an AI perspective, well, to do a lot more of the predictive analysis when it comes down to security, as well as being able to utilize that with networking and things like that. The bread and butter, right? Like I said, the core of what Versa does is because we are, we started our foundation as a networking firm. We basically came out with and set the standard for SD-WAN. We can actually see the packet in ways nobody else can. So because of that, we can actually put enforcement, right, and enforce security policies at different areas within the network, gain full visibility into what that packet can actually do and what it's carrying, and have you better visibility so I can see it, I can block it, I can remediate it, right? I can have visibility in all steps, right, throughout the entire network, unlike the rest of the industry.
Thank you so much for the great introduction to the company. Now, as you said, the roots are in networking and then you expand it to security. The fact is that people may not realize is that networking is just like, roads and streets, that's where the bad guys come to your place and, you can do whatever you do. So, and then there has been a lot of concepts like, zero trust network. I mean, zero trust is a broad concept. It can be applied. People love to talk about it, but I don't know how many people actually implement that. So if I ask you from Versa's perspective, how would you define zero trust from the lens of networking?
So I don't want to look at it just from a lens of networking, right? Because we have to look at zero trust from a lens of security, right? Networking is a component at the end of the day, for that. So look at zero trust as more like a security paradigm. It's how you have to approach both your networking as well as what you do from your application access and everything around, from what zero trust really is. But it's a paradigm that shifts the way that you're architecting. It shifts the way that you're giving access to end users, to end devices, and so forth, and really bringing that into least privileged access. Zero trust doesn't mean you don't get access anywhere. Zero trust really means is that I eventually have to extend access, but I have to extend that access and I have to extend that trust to an end device or an end user in such a way that limits where they can go, what they can do, right? If they have something malicious on their machine, if they're doing something malicious, I can easily mitigate that and remediate it in such a way that I don't have a widespread outage or I don't have a widespread incident. So I don't take the publicity side of the house, right, or the public, hit, right, going forward from my reputation. And I also don't take the monetary hit that comes on the backside of that, whether it be something like ransomware or however, and I actually have to, do I would say a lot of remediation. Or I have to call in an IR firm. I have to call something like that to be able to make sure that all of my files and all of my data is still within house and hasn't been exfiltrated or encrypted.
No, that's very well said. The fact is, when we look at security, we cannot have those old siloed approach. We have to have holistic approach. Any moving piece within the whole stack can lead to security issues. So yeah, thank you for that approach. Now, let's also talk about, you did briefly talked about that when you are introducing the company, how you folks approach security. Can you talk about how Versa approaches security all the way from networking to the holistic stack?
So we started out right with security, just like everybody else does. Everybody, realistically has a next gen firewall. We're looking at it from a networking perspective, what's going at the edge, right? What's coming in, going out of my environment, and so forth. And then over time, security has taken an evolution, and so has Versa with that over the course of the last about 11 years. That Versa has been in business. And so we took the evolution of with our on-prem side with SD-WAN and started doing more around identity, started coming up, next-gen firewall has the ability to look at my applications, looks at my users, things like that. And so we said, look, we absolutely need to do that. And like I said, about 3 years ago, we moved it into the cloud, but we've been doing this on-prem since day one. We've been looking at users and attaching users to applications. And from a network perspective, it allows us to do a lot around segmentation, least privileged access, things like that, just from a next-gen firewall capability. And so the evolution of that has moved into, now we got to be a little bit more predictive. And now we've got to understand the users and understand their traffic and understand where they're going. And we've attached more things like AI. We have, enhanced capabilities around CASB or Cloud Access Security Broker to be able to give you granular controls to some of those SaaS applications or some of those web apps that we have out there to prevent things like data exfil, do things a lot like data leakage or data loss prevention, as well, to be able to understand, am I putting, confidential documents even within my corporately approved cloud storage, but am I putting confidential documents there? Am I shifting it across my network in an unsecure fashion, like through Microsoft Teams or something like that? And so now we've been able to build this robust security platform, based upon, a lot of the foundations that we have from a networking aspect to be able to deliver a comprehensive solution across the board to be able to say, look, now, right, I actually have the ability to look at my data. I can do my break and inspect. I have security at every point of access, both at my edge as well as what I have in my cloud. And I can protect my data and my users. It isn't just about protecting data anymore. It's about protecting the end user, no matter where they sit remotely or on-prem, because inherently, if I protect that end user, and this is where zero trust and the evolution of that is really kind of come to, is that if I protect the end user that's attached to my organization, then guess what? I protect my organization inherently, because that end user doesn't have to worry about something like ransomware or a malicious actor trying to infiltrate their machine, or even from them, if they are a malicious actor, doing data exfil or insider threat.
When we talk about security, it is as much about of course, tools and technologies as it is about practice, and culture there. As I say, culture can eat all your strategies, for lunch and breakfast. As we talk about, especially after COVID, the whole remote working, hybrid workforce are becoming reality, not becoming reality. We'll see how things change with the political landscape is changing, where people are being forced, to come back to office. But hybrid workforce is going to stay, which also means people are bringing either their devices to work or bringing work devices to home and using them for work and personal things. Sometimes, they may not even enable VPN, and all the security measures are there. Uh, what can security teams do to, first of all, have better visibility? You cannot protect what you can't see. Better visibility. And then what employees should, the problem with the employees is that you can only do so much. Don't click on any link that you don't trust. Don't click on any attachment that you get in the email. So we have to also kind of foolproof these things as well. So talk about the approaches that organizations are taking, both for employees and for the security team, to build a culture where, they don't have to fully rely on the tools all the time.
Well, first off, let's talk about what the weakest link in security really is, right? And that's the human element. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people that are remote. We have a lot of people that are on-prem. And we can't educate everyone in this day and age in cybersecurity. We can try to give them a foundational element. We can try to teach them exactly what you just said. Don't click on links, right? Don't do things that you shouldn't be doing with inside of the environment. But, things are going to get clicked, right? People just, inherently they're busy. They didn't read the email. They didn't didn't realize that it was a phishing email or something like that, they're going to do it. And so this gets back to your question, right, around, what can cybersecurity professionals, what can the employees, and then of course, what can, the security teams inside of a company do? So the way I see it is it's our responsibility, right, to unfortunately have to protect the masses. And I say unfortunately because that's a lot of stress on us, right, as security practitioners, right, in the field today. So we have to do things like being able to limit, number one, what those users can actually access, making sure they can only access the systems, right, and the programs and the applications and so forth, what they need to be able to do their job and not have implicit trust throughout the entire environment. Because what happens if they misread the email? What happens if they clicked on that link? What happens if, something is going on, right? Let's just talk about it from a threat actor perspective. What happens if someone was able to get into that environment or get into their machine and use that as a jump point? We don't want that happening, right, within the world today. So users, number one, we do have to train them. We have to keep them abreast of what's going on within the industry. We have to keep normal trainings. Here at Versa, we do that, pretty regularly, every 6 to 12 months. We always go through our cybersecurity awareness training. We understand exactly what's going on in the industry, or at least high level, what's going on, some, hygiene things that we should and should not be doing, right? But we have to go deeper from the tools aspect. So we have to employ tools within our environment that can protect our end users, that can protect our organizations, right, going forward. Things like, whether it be cloud security or on-prem security or however that is, things that allow us to get that visibility, right, within our organization to understand how we can protect our organizations moving forward, and to be able to utilize that tool to be able to do the remediation side as well. Can I go ahead and block that user? Can I go ahead and quarantine that user? Can I use these tools to be able to have that user have a direct connectivity back to, the SOC, right, or Security Operations Center, or however it is, even if they're remote, for that Security Operations Center to be able to remediate, that particular endpoint, whether it's manually going in or running something like an automation platform to be able to scrub the machine, be able to scrub, what's currently there, or like ransomware, or something like a, malicious file, right, or something of that nature. Or let's also look at it from insider threat, capability as well. If that user is trying to upload documents into their own personal Dropbox and they shouldn't be doing it, once again, have that solution automatically block that user and have someone be able to lock their machines remotely, right? Basically take them out of the network, as necessary. So they're not doing that any longer, and then be able to take that HR action moving forward.
Thank you. A lot of organizations like Amazon, they have very strict policies because they lock devices all the way to CPU level. You cannot just bring any Mac, M2, M3, So can you also talk about that side? Because as hybrid workforce, they bring their devices or they take the work devices. Bring your own device as well happen. So what are the procedures in place to ensure that the device is protected at the at the hardware level as well?
So usually security teams, or even networking teams, or however it is, will set the standard for what their organization will use, whether it's a Windows machine, a Mac, or something of that nature. Security teams or the risk and compliance team will absolutely set the standards of what service packs or what packages need to be loaded on that machine, specifically from an antiviral, updates, things of that nature. So there is at least that security component that rides on that. Normally, what you will see is that you'll have a system that is put in place that will do checks and balances against that system to make sure that system is compliant in order for it to come on. So let's take in effect what you just said. I don't allow just any machine. I don't allow BYOD. I only allow my corporate machine. My corporate machine is enrolled in my MDM, right, or my mobile device manager. It's enrolled in my my Active Directory or Microsoft Entra, right? It's a Windows machine going forward. I know this machine. I control this machine. I have something there that allows me to do that. So from that, right, from a networking perspective, we can take a look at everything that's on that machine and what's enabled, right? So, from a networking and a security perspective, I have to understand, is my file, is my disk encryption turned on? Is things like file encryption turned on? Are things like, antivirus not only loaded on the machine, but is it in an on state, right? Am I a valid user that's logging into that machine? I'm allowing the machine onto the environment, but I also have to protect the user and protect that machine as well. So therefore, am I a valid user, right? Able to come on? Am I utilizing, corporately approved software? Am I utilizing something like Shadow IT? Can I find things like that? And if I do, right, is the machine, number one, allowed on? Or from a risk and compliance aspect, can I go ahead and dynamically segment out and say, I'm not allowed into certain crown jewels, right, or certain aspects of my data center, but I can still get to my SaaS applications because I'm still paying for a level of security for that, above and beyond what I already have, within my environment. Maybe I'm utilizing stricter rules for that as well, right? When I say stricter rules, I'm utilizing CASB to say, look, because I don't meet certain compliance aspect, even though this is still known as a corporate machine, but someone's turned off disk encryption, I'm going to go ahead and allow it to where you can't upload anything, right? But you can still download files, right? And if I see that confidence score start to degrade over time, then I know there may be a threat actor that might be involved, or some type of software that may be doing this, or maybe even that user is going through and doing something maliciously and doing something against my corporate standard. And so therefore I can start restricting them going forward. And that's really where we're getting into, from a security aspect, how we're actually protecting that end user is actually going for it on the networking side and saying, look, how can I dial this back and protect this user and protect my data in the same fashion, right? Knowing something may be wrong while also allowing the SOC or some type of security analyst to log into that machine and validate that this is not a program, this is a user, or if it is a program or malicious file, right, go ahead and remediate that, right, in real time.
Now, can you also talk about, if you look at the industries that you cater to, both public sector and private sector, you work closely, you're also with, of course, Pentagon and all the defense industries, and you also work with the private organizations. Can you also talk about the scope of security, how different it is for both? And if you can also talk a bit about whether it's the public sector leading security, because they have much more stricter policies versus, but then we can also look at much more regulated industries, financial or health. They have much more, so which is leading security? That's what I want to hear.
Oh man, that's a hard one. I don't think anyone is truly leading security right now, right? So there are, looking at it from a federal side, there are significantly, I would say, different requirements from a federal aspect than what they are from commercial. So, for example, in a commercial aspect, they are embracing more of cloud security, cloud storage, cloud-driven applications, SaaS applications, things like that. It comes from reduced complexity, reduced cost, things of that nature. But when I look at it from a federal aspect, we've got everything from, whether it be cleared, individuals having to come into a TS environment, all the way down to, sensitive information, to things that are never going to be classified. So there's a multi-level or a multi-level approach, right, that you have to go for when it comes to a security aspect on the Fed side. Most Fed has to be on-prem, right? And the reason for that being is because all those systems are still being developed and built on-prem. And it's because they're holding documents and holding information that is highly classified moving forward, right? That, not giving out any type of state secrets. We're just looking at, just what the industry is saying is that, with those highly classified documents, I can't allow anyone to get to those. And so I have a multi-level or a multi-different type of solution out there to protect that with multiple different gates. On the commercial side, on the other hand, right, we're talking about private business. Yes, we have intellectual property. Yes, we have documents. Yes, we have information that can sink a business if it is in some way compromised. But we're not as strict, right? We're not necessarily looking at things that are government state secrets. What we are looking at is an industry that is allowing us to utilize our cloud storage, who is looking at, companies like Box.com and Microsoft and Google and things like that. It says, we're going to put our storage there. We're going to put our crown jewels, our intellectual property within your storage solution. We're going to depend on you, Mr. Google or Mr. Microsoft or however that is. We're going to depend on you to protect that document. What we are going to do is we're going to make sure the connectivity getting to you is absolutely secure. So there's a reason why that shared responsibility model lives. So we're seeing a lot of the commercial side is moving toward that cloud security. We're seeing them move toward SSE. We're seeing them move towards SASE, right? For the medium to be able to get to that, to be able to secure the connectivity all the way up to the cloud, right, in some way. But yet, once again, right, we're still seeing a lot more on the federal side being driven as on-prem because we're seeing that tight and total control. We don't necessarily want to have a third party that's out there that may or may not have the same security posture as what I dictate from a federal side to be able to secure those documents. Looking at it also coming back down to the state side of the house, we're seeing the state is adopting kind of more of that hybrid approach going forward because they don't have the classification requirements that the federal government has. So they're actually able to utilize some of that cost-effective storage solution and cost-effective compute locations, i.e. up in the cloud like AWS and however, to be able to build their stuff. But not one industry, right, or not one vertical is really leading what security is doing. They're really, it's kind of, security is still being kind of purpose built, believe it or not, for the industry itself. And it's driven by those compliances like PCI, HIPAA, and things like that, that are doing that for them, while you're still having a lot of the other sides of the house that say, look, I can still build my security the way I want to, as long as it's secured and as long as I can validate that I don't have holes, I'm still good.
Jon, thank you so much for joining me today and talk about Versa Network and your approach to security. Thank you so much for those great insights. And I'd love to have you folks back on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.